Welcome back, fellow internet adventurers. Get ready for another wild ride through Reddit's strangest stories. We're diving deep into the internet's quirkiest corners. Grab your popcorn and join us on this adventure. Don't forget to hit subscribe and like. Let's get started. My cheating wife used my travel rewards to book a fair work trip, but forgot to change the reservation contact. My ex-wife, Joanne, 52, and I, 53, had been married for 26 years. For the sake of this story, I'll call her Joanne. Beyond those 26 years, Joanne and I have known each other since we were 17. We went to high school together. I attended school on the opposite side of town while she went to a Catholic high school. All we've known is each other. Right after high school, we decided to travel for a bit and experience what life had to offer because we knew we wanted to start a family, and traveling might look different after having kids. Additionally, I came into some money after my grandfather passed away, who had left some land to my father, who then gifted us about a quarter section of it. When we returned, we built our own place on the land that had been passed down to me, got married, and Joanne quickly became pregnant with the first of our 4 boys. My family comes from a long line of farmers. It's what we do best. I always knew I would end up doing this, but it never bothered me. I didn't feel forced into it. It was something I was interested in and took pride in. I had helped both my grandfather and father on the family farm since I was just a small boy. It was in my blood. Joanne came from a large blue-collar family. Her father was the best heavy-duty mechanic in the county and had spent a lot of time at our farm fixing our equipment. That's actually how we met. She tagged along with her father one day when a piece of equipment broke down. We caught each other's eye, and the rest was history, as they say. Even though her father was who he was, she had never actually gotten her hands dirty until we built our house on the farm. I don't want to toot my own horn, but at the time, my family was one of the largest dairy producers in the north, and because of that, my family's name was well known and respected. I remember talking to Jo and telling her that there wouldn't be much outside of the farm for me. I'd likely be working on it until the day I die. But she claimed she was okay with that. She told me this was the life she wanted and that she wanted to be with me, and anything outside of that wasn't a life she wanted to be a part of. So, she helped me operate the farm up until about 4 years ago. By then, our boys had long been grown men, starting their own families and also helping out on the farm. Around that time, she took up a job with a company similar to Avon, a door-to-door cosmetic marketing scheme of sorts. A friend of hers from out of town had talked her into it, saying she would do really well in something like that because she was so hot and charismatic and was well known in the area, having joined a bunch of councils and boards. These were apparently her friend's words, hot and charismatic. I encouraged her to take the leap and said that she'd do well no matter what she did after her friend said that. Jo kept asking me if I thought she was pretty and if she was good-looking. This really felt like it came out of nowhere to me. Jo had never been the kind of woman to doubt herself. Honestly, Jo was one of the most beautiful women I had ever laid eyes on. I told her she was beautiful, and I tried to make a habit of saying that to her every day after that. It got me thinking that maybe I hadn't been saying enough prior to that. Shortly after, I noticed Jo's enthusiasm for the farm started to slip away. She just wasn't interested in it and didn't really ask me about my day anymore or go out of her way to do small chores around the farm. Not that I expected that of her, but it was usually what she had done. We ended up talking, and she said that she didn't want me to be mad at her for taking on a new job. I told her that I had more than enough help and that she should do what makes her happy. I would never be mad at her for doing something that made her happy. She ended up taking the job and actually did quite well with the company. Once you sell a certain amount of products, the company buys you a vehicle. Not just any vehicle, but one of those fancy German cars. She ended up becoming regional manager, and the company compensated her for her hard work with a free car. I was really proud of her, but as soon as she got the car, I noticed her personality change a bit. She drove around town like her crap didn't stink, and I had to hear about it from the husbands who had heard it from their wives. At first, I just thought it was jealousy. I mean, it's not unheard of in a small town. People don't really like change all that much, or like people flaunting their cash. My wife had always been so modest. She dressed well, but she didn't dress above her means. She was always a t-shirt and jeans kind of gal, and my wife, throughout the time I've known her, had never gotten her nails done. But after that car, She started getting her nails done and buying all these high-fashion clothes that she'd drive right into the city to get. I mean, I'm not a fashionista by any means. I couldn't tell you one designer from something you'd get at Walmart. But the clothes she was wearing were racking up the visa. Not that she wasn't paying it down, but I knew the amount she was spending on clothes when the bills would come in, and it was more than she had ever spent on clothes in about 5 years. I tried to be supportive. She told me that this job was about image and standards. She said no one was going to take her seriously selling ladies' makeup and cosmetics if she looked like she came off the farm. The way she explained it made sense to me at the time. I thought, hey, who am I to tell her what she can and can't do with her money? Anyway, the job allowed her to travel and work from home. The money she was bringing in let us take trips here and there, but nothing too crazy. I mean, we weren't a Disneyland family. We had been to the Grand Canyon and Joshua Tree, but nothing far beyond that. When she traveled all over for conferences and meetings, she'd go to Miami, Las Vegas, San Francisco, and New Orleans, just to name a few. I mean, big enough cities that they seemed a bit overwhelming to a redneck like me, but when she would come back home, she'd be full of life, and it was so great to see. Jo fresh and revitalized. I honestly felt really happy for her. Now, I can't remember exactly when this was, but I think it might have been around November when she came to me and told me about a man I'll call Dom, who had recently started with the company. I thought it was odd to have a man in there selling ladies' makeup and whatnot when the company was primarily women, but I thought, hey, times are changing. She said that he was a sales director and wasn't actually selling the products himself, but they had brought him in to expand the company. She mentioned that he had come up with this big idea to reward those who made the top sales of the year with a trip to Mexico in February. I thought, sweet, we're going to Mexico. Both of us had never been. Then she broke the news to me that it was only for people in the company and friends and family weren't allowed. I was like, huh, that's bizarre, but I thought that since it was the farthest they had ever gone for something like that, it made sense that they couldn't afford to offer the trip to family as well. Family had been invited to other events before this, but nothing as extravagant as Mexico. So, surprise, surprise, Jo ends up being the top saleswoman in her region, and because of that, she was rewarded with this trip to Mexico. Apparently, she was one of 10 ladies, plus a few regional directors and top folks in the company, including Dom. February rolls around, and she goes on this trip. I hardly hear from her while she's gone, but this isn't out of the ordinary when she's away for work. I also told her to go and relax and have fun, so I wasn't hurt or anything when I didn't hear from her because I knew she was trying to unplug. I go to pick her up at the airport when she gets back, and on the drive home, all I hear is Dom this and Dom that. Apparently, he's 43 and has never been married. He's from Los Angeles and works remotely. She mentioned that this was the first time she actually met him in person. She said he used to work as a car salesman. Apparently, he was tall, dark, and handsome, and knew how to dress well. She admires how driven he is, and he really listens to her and what she has to say. Plus, he's incredibly charming. They just drank at the poolside bar and played beach volleyball the whole time. I didn't want to see him at all, but the way she talked about him really rubbed me the wrong way. On one hand, I knew she was happy and having fun, and I was proud of her professional growth. On the other hand, the way she spoke about him made me uneasy. Something just seemed beyond professional about it. Then again, I wasn't used to Jo really working. Not that working on the farm wasn't work, but we worked side by side. I thought maybe those feelings I was having were just jealousy since I hadn't actually seen her in a type of environment that wasn't on the farm, like a corporate setting. Fast forward a bit to April. I came inside to find a package on her kitchen table. It's addressed to Jo, and I see that the sender is Dom. I decide to leave it there and see if my wife mentions receiving something from him at dinner. Over dinner, I notice she's wearing a new fancy watch that I don't recall her saying she purchased. Usually, she's pretty keen on showing off what she's bought. I ask her about the watch, and she says it just came in today as a gift from her company for all her hard work. I ask if it was from anyone in particular at her company, and she says nope, just a group thank you. I didn't question it further, but I knew she was lying. I knew it had nothing to do with the work because her company usually sends things like that in company-branded wrapping or on letterhead. This straight up looked like Dom had packed it personally. Later that night, we were lying in bed, and I decided to ask her, "Are you attracted to Dom?" She acted shocked and offended that I'd even ask such a question. She said, "Of course not," and insisted that I'm the only man she's ever been attracted to. I wasn't really convinced by this and told her that I didn't feel comfortable with the relationship she had with Dom. Well, you can imagine that started a huge fight. She began to talk about how there was nothing between them and that I was just jealous of her success, claiming it had nothing to do with me or the farm, and that I was mad at her for not working on the farm anymore. I stood my ground and told her that it didn't have anything to do with her not working on the farm. I said that I didn't trust Dom and his intentions. I told her that I knew the watch was from Dom. I said, "Imagine if someone was sending me gifts like that and I was keeping it a secret from you." She replied, "But I'm not lying. I told you it was from the company as a gift for the sales I'm making and the records I'm breaking." She added that if I was breaking records, then she'd hope I was getting properly compensated too. Needless to say, I ended up sleeping in the spare room. The next day, she talked to me as if nothing had happened the night before. She tried to butter me up, gave me a kiss, squeezed me, slapped my butt, and told me that she missed me. No apology, though. She's like, "We should take a trip together to get back on track." I'm like, "Okay, sure." And it did seem a bit hopeful at first until she mentioned that she has to take a work trip this upcoming weekend. The way she talks about the details when she gets back makes me immediately suspicious. I ask her where she's going and why she didn't bring this up before. She tells me Nashville and that she totally forgot to mention it, but it was an important trip not to miss. I ask her if there's anyone specific she's going to see, and she asks me what I mean by that. She says it's for training and that the majority of the company will be going. It's mandatory. She mentions it's only for 3 days, but at that point, I wasn't going to give her the benefit of the doubt. It was just too coincidental. I ask her where she's staying and where it's at, and she tells me the Hyatt House. So she goes on this trip Saturday morning, and everything is business as usual for me at home. Then I get this call. It turns out to be Emma from the Hyatt Regency in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm thinking, why would someone from the Hyatt in Phoenix be contacting me? She tells me there's a slight issue with the room reservation under Joanne blank. She says there were some discrepancies with the payment method and wants to confirm the details with me. She mentions that the payment information on file didn't match the cardholder's name and asks me to verify the card details right away. Red flags are raised. I ask if anyone else is listed under the reservation or if any guests have been added to the room. She's quiet for a bit and then says it looks like there's another guest registered to the room, Mr. Dominic blank. Is that correct, sir? I'm like, HM. Actually, no, that's not correct. I'm like, can you tell me if they're both checked in right now? She goes, yes, both guests checked in yesterday evening. I decide not to blow my top and give her my credit card, and the conversation ends. I immediately text Joe just to receive a call from the hotel. Why is Dom checked in with you? We need to talk now. She texts me back, it's a work thing. He's here for the same training, nothing to worry about. I'll explain when I get back. I'm fuming at this point. She tries to text me again later that night, saying she's thinking of me, misses me, and all that, but I'm not responding. She even tried to call me but didn't leave a message. I actually texted my brother and asked him to come over. We sat on the porch, and I told him what's been happening. He says he knows a guy who can help me and get papers sorted if that's what I really want to do. I ended up emailing the guy just to set up an appointment to see what that might look like, but since it was Saturday, I wasn't expecting a response back anyway. She comes home on Sunday afternoon, and my brother is still there. She got her friend to drop her off. She goes to hug me, but I push her away and I'm like, care to explain why Dom was checked into your room? She said there was a mix-up with the reservation and he had nowhere else to stay. Then I asked her how Nashville was. She tells me that it was beautiful weather and the food there was great. I'm like, that's interesting considering you were staying in Phoenix. She tries to act dumb, and then I tell her that the hotel called me because there was an issue with the payment, and that's how I found out about her and Dom. She told me it's not what you think. I told her that it looks exactly how it is and that she's been lying to me. I said she was dumb enough not to change the contact information on the travel rewards, so they instantly contacted me when there were issues with the payment. She tries to deny it and says that she got the conference city mixed up when she first told me and that it was actually in Phoenix. I wasn't having any of it. Then she literally goes into hysterics, starts crying, and tells me that it was just the once and a huge mistake. She's trying to hug me, and my brother literally has to rip her off me. Then he tells Joe that she better pack more stuff in that bag of hers and get her friend to pick her up and stay somewhere else for a while. Interestingly enough, she actually listens to him and leaves the house. My brother stays with me that night, and we start drinking and go over a game plan for my next moves. After that, we did some investigating and found out that Dom was actually married with 2 kids. Because I had a few drinks in my system, I messaged his wife and told her that her husband was cheating on her with my wife. I told her everything I knew about the hotel and the gift he bought for her. I wake up to Joe trying to get into the house, shouting at me that she can't believe I'd stoop so low to spread rumors about her. Then I tell her to quit the act because I know she's seeing Dom. She tries crocodile tears, but I literally tell her I don't believe a word she says. I tell her that she's better off just telling me the truth now. Then she says that she was so severely unhappy for all those years. She said she hated working on the farm and that she had been living a lie. She mentioned starting this job and then meeting Dom, which changed everything for her. She finally felt free, like herself, and felt beautiful, loved, and desired. Then she began insulting me, calling me a dirty, stupid pig. I asked her why. If she hated our life together so much, she stuck around. She replied that she thought things would get better, or that she would be able to travel more and do fancy things, but that I was just such a cheap bastard. I told her I never held her back from anything. We could have traveled if she wanted to and gone to fancy dinners, but she never said a word to me. I told her that if she had just spoken up, we might have had a chance. That's when I told her I contacted a divorce lawyer. Then she started begging for forgiveness and crying, saying she didn't mean it and didn't know what came over her. She just liked the way he looked at her. I said I had been looking at her like that since we were 17, but she was too blind to see. I told her to get out of the house, and she eventually did after I threatened to call her father. Fast forward to the divorce. I obviously had a lot more to my name than she did, which meant I had a lot more to lose. Thankfully, I was able to spend that money on a good lawyer, who was fantastic. My brother really pulled through. By the time the divorce was over, I had everything I wanted. I kept the house, the farm, and the business. I sold her back her shares of the business and a few acres of land that I really didn't need. I don't really know what happened with Dom. His account went private, so I couldn't see what was going on in his life. However, based on the pictures on his wife's account, she's his ex-wife now. All the pictures of him that were once there are now deleted. My brother and my boys really supported me through all of this. They weren't too impressed that their mother cheated on me, which made family get-togethers a bit awkward for a while until she eventually just stopped showing up to save face. Anyway, I'm moving on, and life on the farm is thriving. Business is good. Like I said, I'll be here until the day I die, and I'm very okay with that. Goodbye for now, and thank you for joining us today. Be sure to like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on the next video. See you next time.